and he starts working out. And their intention is to collect as much sweat as they can, so Steve-O can then drink it, and they call it a sweatsuit cocktail, which absolutely disgusting. And there's a scene where it's dribbling off of Preston's chin, and Steve-O's catching it, and Johnny Knoxville's like, oh, it's like white gravy.
Time for the greatest show fi start anew. The ringmaster James, him step inside the frame with a wide angle.
Good morning, Creature Features. Welcome to Cinema Clown Around, Episode 5. I'm James, and we got a lot of interesting stuff today. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everybody to like, comment, subscribe, share. Also, message me any topics, anything you'd like me to cover, and I can get into it. So today, we are going to be looking at the Jackass series. So a little bit of the TV show, but mainly at the Jackass films to get ready for Jackass Best and Last, which is going to be the 5th, and as they're saying, it's going to be the final Jackass movie. Now, whether that's true, I'm not sure. I thought the final one was going to be the first one. I was happy to get it. I actually saw every one of them in theaters. The only one I saw in theaters twice was the second one, though. The second one is my favorite out of all of them, but I'll definitely let y'all know why. So please let me know, are y'all Jackass fans? And are you looking forward to the new movie? So to get us started, you got Johnny Knoxville, Steve-O, Jason Wee Man Acuna, Danger Aaron McGehee, Preston Lacey, Dave England, and Chris Party Boy Pontius that make up the crew. And you know, just looking at the Jackass franchise in general, it's pretty much one of those strange phenomena that happens in modern entertainment that you're never going to get anything like this ever again, because in a lot of ways they kind of started the internet culture of making crazy videos. So there's also a new crew that have been added as recently as the 4th movie. So you got Jasper Dolphin, Rachel Wolfson, who I actually met, and I've seen her do stand-up twice, and she's really funny. Then you also have Dark Shark and Poopies. Poopies might be my favorite out of the new crew, just because he's so unusual and goofy. And then you got Zach Holmes, that rounds out the new cast. So looking at the TV roots, it started on MTV as a reality show, and it ran from 2000 to 2002. So this started with Big Brother magazine too, and once they got with MTV and came up with this show, you know, it's pretty much lightning in a bottle for the entertainment industry. And you know, you're looking at season 1 that happened in 2008 episodes, and you know, this was very low budget, you could definitely tell, but a lot of fun. And you know, it was the introduction to the world of, you know, with the Jackass crew as well as the show in general. Season 2, early 2001, 8 episodes. And, you know, they got a bigger budget this time around because it was such a success, the first season. And you see them going out into public a lot more and also doing teamwork type stuff. And that's really entertaining. Season 3, the final season, that was late 2000 and into 2002. It was 9 episodes, and it was the very end. And they were facing things like network censorship, copycat lawsuits, and also just the cast said that they were tired and just couldn't do it anymore. And I think a lot of that does have to do with the fact that there were these lawsuits. I mean, if you're always trying to defend your art, it's got to be hard trying to actually continue making art. So looking at the films, we're going to start with Jackass 1. This one came out in 2002. And when I saw this one at the movies, I remembered they had all the cinema people roving around making sure that kids weren't going to be sneaking in to see the Jackass movie. And me and a friend, Adam, were walking around, and we were at Cinemark, and we were approached by one of the employees there who said, "Hey, where's your parents?" And we said, "Well, we're with his mom." And he's like, "Well, where is she?" Said, "Well, she's in the theater." And like, "Which theater? What are you here to see, Jackass?" And the guy like immediately got even angrier and is like, "You can't see that movie." Like, oh. So we showed him the ticket stubs, and he said, "Well, you go back to that theater right now." Which was actually pretty funny, because it's like, okay, so you're saying that we can't go into the movie theater because it's an R-rated movie, but we have tickets to see the movie and we're there with an adult. But you don't want us you just want us to go sit back in the theater, it made no sense. But you know that theater people have definitely relaxed since then, and I haven't had anything like that. Although I did experience a fire drill or a fire alarm at the movies. It wasn't a drill, I guess it was like an electrical thing or something at Cinemark, and I can show you all some footage of that too. It was crazy. So what was interesting about this one was my older brother hated this film, and that actually made it a lot of fun to watch and to turn on. It was another thing that he tried to do was he tried to get my dad to get me to shut it off or to stop, you know, and that just wasn't happening. During the first Jackass movie, I was definitely more of a Bam fan to start than a Steve-O fan. I loved his CKY stuff, and it was just a lot of fun to watch his pro skating and also to play as him in Tony Hawk Pro Skater. But since I have became a Steve-O fan, so in between the first and the second film. And what's pretty cool, there's a lot of really cool bits and gags and setups that they have in this, but they bring in Tony Hawk and Matt Hoffman, who both skate and BMX in big suits with Bam Margera, and it's a really fun segment. And you know, we gotta definitely get into Steve-O, who you know is now my favorite, but it's just some of the bits that he did with the sea cucumber, the whale shark, and then there was him backing out of the toy car at the very end. And I almost wonder that made him more entertaining by backing out, and by the second one, he's doing all sorts of crazy stuff. And it was interesting when they traveled to Japan in this one, because you know, completely different culture and intentional cultural shock from the Jackass guys. And that actually reminds me of the wasabi snooters that Steve-O does, and one of my favorite parts of the first film. And I can imagine the wasabi is probably pretty strong that he had snorted. And then Party Boy Japan, when Party Boy goes and harasses you know, the police there, and they're just trying to get him out of this electronics store as he's jamming out to that classic Party Boy song. And then, you know, we definitely can't forget about the fact that they had a higher budget in this, so things were different. It wasn't as rinky-dink as the show was. So they actually had money to build crazy sets and do entertaining stuff. And one of the things I do have to commend this Jackass is the first movie is having fantastic special features, just a ton of them, almost a whole other movie that they have included. And you get to see another side of them that wasn't shown in the film, and also some of the grosser stuff that they cut from the film. So highly recommend it. And the rocket skates with Johnny Knoxville, that's probably my favorite bit of Johnny Knoxville for the whole of Jackass 1, just because they were so funny and they actually were starting to work. You kind of wish that they didn't do it at night, and maybe would have been easier for them, but it's still, actually the effect of seeing the rockets does help with it being nighttime. And I think overall, though, my favorite bit of the whole movie, actually I take that back, the Johnny Knoxville's rent-a-car crash up. And not so much the rent-a-car crash up, but when he's renting the car initially, the ridiculous outfit he has on that's intentionally ridiculous. And then when he brings the crashed up rent-a-car back, and they're saying like, you have to pay for this. And he's like, you know, well I ain't. Just all this funny stuff. And they're like, well, you declined any additional coverage. And he's like, well, I had a few to drink when I signed that too. Just a classic cinematic line. You'll get a lot of those from that movie. And then I guess an honorable mention for bits from the first Jackass film was definitely the paper cuts with Steve-O. They initially started with Ryan Dunn. It's in between the webbings of the hands and toes, and then Steve-O goes into his mouth, and then with the paper and in between his cheeks, and he's like, yeah, that sucked. Classic. So 2006, we got the release of Jackass 2, and this is a personal favorite. I have seen this one more than I've seen all the other Jackass movies combined, as well as maybe actually most other films, and it's definitely saying something. I like it because this one's dark, it's harsh, but it's also funny. And they go the most extreme in number 2 that they've ever done. And this is one of those rare examples of a sequel being better than the original and surpassing it, for sure. I also love the best special features that they have. The award definitely goes to Jackass 2 for DVD special features. Almost a whole other movie and a half of stuff to watch. So just a ton of stuff, and it's worth it if you all just go to Half Price Books or whatever and buy the DVD. It's definitely worth it. Now, 3 6 Mafia wrote an original song for this. They're one of my favorite musical groups and actually rap groups overall, and it's definitely recommended. It's a lot of fun, and it's a party song, so it definitely gets your energy up. Now, Steve-O's bits in Jackass #2 were just absolutely ridiculous. He did the butt chug, he did the fart mask, which was particularly disgusting, and then he puts a leech on his eyeball, which I guess is supposed to be some sort of medical procedure, which it was pretty interesting that they decided to go and travel to India for Jackass 2 because you get a whole different feel than you got for Jackass 1 from Japan. And I have to say, there's another really funny scene that takes place in a hotel where they keep getting punched of this Valentine that's written on the wall, and they keep reading it, and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, so their face has to get closer, and punching or boxing glove comes out of the wall and hits him in the face, and very funny, and one of the best bits actually of the whole film. And then you can't forget the very ending with the taxi cab with Danger Aaron. That is a lot of fun. They have Jay Chandrasekhar, who's posing as a cab driver. Now he's a famous director and actor who's part of the Broken Lizard Gang, who did Beer Fest and a few other stuff. And Super Troopers 3 is actually coming out this summer, so we'll give you all a review on that for sure. But that taxi cab bit, and they all shave off their body hair and they use it as fake movie magic beard hair, which they glue on to Danger Aaron's face. And then they let him know about it, and he's just so disgusted, and he's saying, oh, it's in my mouth and stuff. It's very funny, and gosh, Jackass 2 is the best movie out of the whole series for sure. Now, maybe Jackass Best and Last is going to surpass it. He had cameos by Luke Wilson, and great actor, and he's from Texas too. And then also Mike Judge, who I think he is also from Texas too, the Beavis and Butthead creator. And at the very beginning of this movie, they have that bull run, which that's a lot of fun. It's crazy though too, considering that these are real bulls that are going after these guys, and they're running through this suburban neighborhood. And then an honorable mention definitely goes to the Wee Man and Preston stunt that Bam drew up of Preston stands on the bridge with a bungee cord strapped to him, and Wee Man is strapped to Preston. Wee Man jumps off and pulls Preston down. It's definitely really funny. And then the Johnny Knoxville rocket. So he gets on a gigantic rocket, which he says is going to take him to the moon. And they have to film it a couple times because the very first time a rocket shoots out of the side and goes off. And if it was just a few feet over, Johnny Knoxville said, that would have been the old rap on Knoxville. So I'm glad that didn't happen. That would have been disastrous. And hopefully they keep it a little bit lighter on him in the 5th movie, because all those guys are definitely getting older. So then moving on to 2010. So it seems like every 4 years, 2002 to 2006, 2006 to 2010, you get Jackass 3D. Unfortunately, this is my least favorite out of all of them, but it's still really good and actually really funny too. Jared Allen, an NFL player and ex-Viking, makes an appearance in this, and it's probably one of the funniest parts of the movie and one of my most heavily quoted scenes. See you in the showers. Hilarious Knoxville line to Jared Allen. He repeats it. And then Steve-O is back with a force in Jackass 3D. He does the porta potty, which, it's crazy. They do this porta potty under these bungees, and then they shoot them up into the air, and it's a full porta potty. So it is disgusting. But it is funny. Then, the most revolting scene possibly of the entire series has to be the sweatsuit cocktail that Steve-O does with Preston Lacey. So they have Preston Lacey in a big plastic suit, and they put him on an elliptical, and he starts working out, and their intention is to collect as much sweat as they can, so Steve-O can then drink it, and they call it a sweatsuit cocktail, which absolutely disgusting. And there's a scene where it's dribbling off of Preston's chin, and Steve-O's catching it, and Johnny Knoxville's like, oh, it's like white gravy. I would highly recommend y'all check that scene out because it's really funny. And this was also the very last Jackass with Ryan Dunn, which a major farewell and rest in peace. In 2011, I think it was around in June, he died of a car wreck. And this was his final film with them, and he was definitely missed in Jackass Forever and the continuance. But it's great to go back and watch the footage that we got of him. And then the Dave England eruption. I'm not going to say too much more about this for Jackass 3D, but the Dave England eruption is something else for sure. Then the Wee Man bar fight. Now it's definitely probably a little on the inappropriate side now, but it was theatrical, it was comical, and it gets the honorable mention here. I really thought Jackass 3D was going to be the very final film in the series, but you know, we were blessed with another Jackass, Jackass Forever, which that's actually how I got this shirt. It was through Cinemark, and they had a promotion with the Jackass films, so definitely happy to get that. Okay, so they waited 12 years to make another Jackass film. That's a long time. So 2022, we ended up getting Jackass Forever. This is particularly cool because they have a really cool Godzilla opening, where they have this Godzilla creature, or like a kaiju, and it's going down the street, and it's kind of taking out all the guys in different forms or fashions, and it's actually a pretty intense opening. By far the most theatrical opening that they have in the whole series, and it makes me curious to see where they're going to go for the 5th film. And Steve-O went all out in this one again. He does this trick with the bees, which you can kind of see up here on the skateboard. I was so psyched after I saw this one that I had to pick that skateboard up just because I love that bit and I love the colors on it, the blue and the yellow. And that's actually the colors of Cinema Clown Around. Steve-O also does this skate guillotine where he puts his legs underneath this guillotine that has a skateboard on it, and it ends up slamming down right under his shins, and it looks horrible. I definitely wouldn't want to do that one. Then he also does the underwater fart, which that's all I'm going to say about that. It kind of speaks for itself. It's a bit that they said they've been trying to get for a long time, and Steve-O's finally able to do it, but it's pretty strange though. Okay, so then we also have Danger Aaron, who I think by far in this film goes the hardest. There's a thing with a pogo stick, which is absolutely devastating. There's another scene where they cover him with honey and salmon, and they release a black bear into the room, which, yeah, that would not be a whole lot of fun. And then there's a scene where they do a cup test with him. So they're throwing softballs at him, and then they're doing all sorts of stuff, and that's actually included with that pogo stick. But that's probably, I would have to say, probably the most intense of all the Jackasses is that pogo stick scene. So Ryan Dunn, again, was missed in this one. It would have been great to see him in this film, but hopefully in the next one we'll see a tribute for him. And okay, so Silence of the Lambs, that gets the best bit of the whole film for me. They get everybody in different rooms, and it's almost kind of an escape room situation. And they explain to them that they have a snake that they've released, and then all of a sudden the lights go out and the doors shut and lock, and they're locked away. And the crew and Johnny Knoxville and some of the other guys mess with all the other guys with night vision goggles, and that's where they get the Silence of the Lambs, because of the scene where Buffalo Bill tracks down Jodie Foster's character in Silence of the Lambs with night vision goggles. As they're doing it, they're also playing this song, Lotion by Greenskeepers, and it's hilarious. It's a song that after I saw the movie, I went and hunted the song down, and I over-listened to it. So that's definitely something to check out. I also remember a coworker of mine saying, Yeah, you know, I'm excited. It's the Jackass Forever. It's going to be the last one. It's going to be great. I'm going to go with my boyfriend for my birthday. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, let me know what you think. I'm going this weekend too. So I see her on Monday, and she's just shaking her head and is like, oh, that did not go well. He did not like that movie. He didn't like all the male nudity. And, you know, I thought it was just going to be a nice send-off with the guys, and they were just going to be nice and relaxed. And it's like, no, 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 no. This is Jackass Forever. They're going hard for this one, and they definitely did. She said they didn't even stay for the entire film, which is disappointing because I love this movie. I've watched it over and over, and actually was just watching it yesterday to prepare for the next Jackass film. Now, I also really love the ending, but it looks miserable. They're on a merry-go-round. Now, if I get dizzy or nauseous or anything like that, I'm almost ruined for an entire day. So, to me, it looks miserable. They're also all chugging different colored milk that correlates to the color of their t-shirt. And then they are all just throwing up on this merry-go-round, and it's pretty sickening. Now, we do get the new crew in this one, too. I have to say my three favorites are definitely Poopies, Rachel Wolfson, and Dark Shark. So I'm definitely curious, you know, what's next? What are we going to see in Jackass Best and Last? Please let me know in the comments, and you know, let me know what you think of all the movies. Which one's your favorite? And you know, each film also received a 0.5 alternate cut. And what this pretty much was it was a companion film, so that they got a Jackass 2.5, Jackass 3.5, Jackass 4.5. And I assume we're also going to get, hopefully, a Jackass Best and Last 0.5, I hope. It would be a mistake if they didn't do it. But there's also a Jackass Bad Grandpa 3.5. So that was a movie spinoff. But they're fully constructed feature-length documentaries, and they have interviews with the cast, and they tell this whole story of the production, and also showed some of the crazy stunts that they ended up on the cutting room floor. And so looking at some of the spin-offs that they had too, show-wise, they had Wild Boys, which is one of my favorite shows ever. It was a nature show starring Steve-O and Chris Pontius, and what they would do was they would travel to different parts of the planet and interact with the people there, but also mainly the wildlife, and they do all sorts of crazy stuff. They get bitten by animals, and I guess some of it may be pretty extreme today, but I would heavily recommend everybody go check out all 4 seasons of Wild Boys. It's a great show. I've got all the seasons right here, and just, I love that show. Highly recommend it over all the other spin-offs. And then next up, you had Homewrecker. This was a Ryan Dunn show, very short-lived, and it was a revenge reality prank show where he would teach people how to get pranks on their roommates in revenge for bad behavior. I enjoyed this show, and you could probably check it out on YouTube. That's mainly where I was watching it. And then you also had Viva La Bam. This ran from 2003 to 2005, and I think this is the one they pumped the most money into from MTV. They gave this one the biggest budget. So you had Bam Margera and also the rest of the CKY crew torturing Bam's parents, as well as Bam's uncle, Don Vito, who played a big part in the show. And now this one is fun. The first few seasons are much better because it starts getting ridiculous and maybe looks slightly scripted. Although I would recommend everybody at least check it out because it's pretty wacky and it's entertaining. So please let me know which one is your favorite 0.5 cut, and also what's your favorite official spinoff from Jackass? You like Wild Boys, Viva La Bam, Homewrecker? And Bam did get it was a wedding show that he had. It was with him and his wife as they were getting married. It was called Bam's Unholy Union. And y'all can check that out on Amazon. I think you have to purchase it though, but you might be able to find clips online. So thank y'all so much. So recently I saw The Death of Robin Hood, and I wanted to go ahead and break down a little bit about the story and give you all a good review for it. So it's got a small cast, but a good one. You've got Hugh Jackman, who plays Robin Hood, he's an aging, older Robin Hood, kind of towards the end of his life. And he ends up crossing paths with Sister Bridget, played by Judy Comer, who ends up pretty much having to nurse him back to health from some serious injuries that he sustains during battle. And then you've also got Bill Skarsgård in this one, who plays Little John, Robin Hood's loyal friend. And this is a much different kind of Little John than we've seen before. Now, Michael Sarnowski was the writer and director for this film, and he was the one who directed A Quiet Place Day One, but what really put him on the map was the film Pig that he made with Nicolas Cage. And that was an interesting one. It was about Nicolas Cage was a former chef who now looks for truffles in the woods. Looks like the Pacific Northwest. He's known for a lot of drama, and a lot of his films are very, very deeply sad. Pig, for example, is one of those ones where you just watch it. But one of the things I noticed, kind of a parallel between the two films, was there's a scene in The Death of Robin Hood where Hugh Jackman is teaching Little John's daughter how to make a bow. And it actually reminds me a lot kind of the scene in Pig where Nicolas Cage is cooking a certain meal for an old associate and his son. And, you know, very kind of similar scenes and a similar setup, but I really like the way that the director did that. And this was actually filmed in Northern Ireland, so they really got that damp wetness, you know, you kind of get to see that mist coming off the moors type stuff. And in this, it's on a convent on an island is where it's supposed to be, and that's where Robin Hood heals up. And this one is definitely, the characters are not like you've seen in the past. This version of Little John, for example, he's brutal and really violent, actually. So there's also no Maid Marian, so there's no love interest in this for Robin Hood, which it seems like maybe Judy Comer could be, although there's such a difference in age. But there isn't. It's not about Robin Hood looking for a lost romance. It's pretty much about Robin Hood surviving, and it shows Robin Hood. He kind of explains that this isn't the Robin Hood that we've known before. He's not so much someone who, you know, steals from rich people and gives it to people in need, but he's more someone who pretty much steals from whoever. And he mentions taking the life of, you know, multiple people that he's been across. But then there's also, they express in the film this certain amount of what you do and the actions that you do with others has consequences. So everybody who he's crossed paths with or wronged, there's always going to be somebody coming after him, he says, like a brother or a son or, you know, any combination thereof. And actually there is a really cool scene in the beginning of the film, which I loved it. As I was sitting there, I was like, this movie is awesome. So Robin Hood and Little John get into this serious fight with these guys, and very violent, very brutal. You see Robin Hood get pierced in the side, so he's already like pretty badly wounded. He ends up winning that battle, and as he's like sitting there kind of getting himself together in the firelight, you see this, it's like I guess I would describe it as a Viking, like an armored Viking coming out of the woods with like the horns and everything, and he just says like, you know, Robin Hood, you wronged me before, however many years ago, and I'm going to make things right now. And so then there's another brutal battle right after Robin Hood gets into this serious battle and gets wounded. He has to then continue to defend himself. And just the way that it was shot, the way that it was framed, and the way that this Viking, this horned Viking, comes out of the woods in the firelight and challenges Robin Hood to a death battle. I mean, that's cinema right there, and I really have to tip it to Michael Sarnowski for doing that. I mean, that scene, I can't wait till that hits YouTube. One of the things I also noticed about this movie is there's no magic, and it seems like there almost could have been. And I guess, I don't know if magic has ever really been part of the Robin Hood universe, but there's also nothing supernatural in this. Now, Sister Bridget, who's played by Judy Comer, there's a scene where she's talking to Robin Hood, and she's talking to him about the science of atoms, and the microscopic particles and how they have consequences and cause and effect, and they bounce off things, and etc. But what that is a reflection of Robin Hood and his past and how he's affected people in his life, and. I really liked the way that they did that. You've never seen a Robin Hood before like this, where he's actually remorseful for the life that he's lived and the things that he's done. Now, I couldn't watch this Robin Hood without thinking about the early 1990s Kevin Costner Robin Hood. Now, I remember this was a really big deal when it came out, and everybody was talking about it. I don't think that it stood the test of time, though, however. Now, I remembered my brother had wrote something about Robin Hood because we watched it as a family once it hit HBO or once it hit cable. And he was writing, and it was very violent, and it was about someone getting struck or pierced with an arrow or something like that. And the teacher was kind of freaked out, and she's like, "What is going on?" So she contacts my parents for a meeting, and they're like, "What is this? Why is he writing this?" And they're like, "Oh, that's from Robin Hood." And the teacher was like, "Oh, okay." So that just goes to show you that right then, the way that that movie was made, much too violent for kids, but this was marketed to kids. I remembered I was at a birthday party in the early 1990s in Phoenix, and it was there held at a park. I remembered he was gifted this Robin Hood play set, so it was pretty much, I guess, like a rolling fort or something for Robin Hood. And I thought it was interesting. I remembered it looked really cool. But upon further reflection, why would someone be excited to get a toy like that for a really kind of a goofy movie like that, which really probably should have had a harder rating than it did. And I would definitely recommend The Death of Robin Hood, though, looping back to the main point. The Death of Robin Hood, I came out of that film completely satisfied, and it's one of those movies where the end just happens, this perfect length, and the end happens, and I was actually surprised. And kind of heavy spoilers here. One of the things that the director does, which is very interesting, is he front loads all the violence, and the whole rest of the movie is kind of this peaceful reflection of, the life of Robin Hood, but also the life of the people at this convent. And I think it was just made really well. So I would highly recommend y'all check out The Death of Robin Hood. There's a lot to love in this film, and I can't wait till it comes out on streaming. So definitely looking forward to it. It's Hugh Jackman at some of his finest. So much for tuning in. We went over all the Jackass movies and talked about some of the shows and spin-offs, as well as some of the alternate cuts of the films. We're really looking forward to Jackass Forever, or Jackass Best and Last. I'm going to go ahead and see it early, and I'm going to give you all a full review. So please remember to like, comment, subscribe, share, tell people about Cinema Clown Around. This was episode 5. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and everybody please stay in the cinema.